Today is the day. I'm on my way to collect the new baby. So, it's a 2-hour drive from London, but I don't want them to deliver it to me because I want to go and collect it myself so I can drive for 2 hours. And this means I have to take a bus, a train to get there. What's this car called? Maserati?
Levante.
Levante.
Yeah. It is a 4x4
Okay.
from Maserati, but very similar size to the Ghibli, but air suspension, obviously a bit bigger, a bit more room indoors and everything, so
Quite comfortable.
Do you like a drink at all, or?
Some coffee would be lovely.
Yeah, sugar?
No, no sugar.
No, no.
So, I'm here. Hello, you lovely people. Welcome to my new car. A lot of you may be wondering what's happened to Ethan. Why on earth is he sitting in this Italian car? I never thought I'd buy one of these, but I don't know what happened. Maybe it's my midlife crisis happening again. I don't know, for the 10th time perhaps. But I thought about this car for a while. For the last, 3-4 months I was thinking about it, and I test drove a couple. I test drove a Ferrari FF and a GTC4 Lusso, GTC4 Lusso T, California T, and it's one of the best engines. And to be honest, when I drove it I realized that they're right in their assessments and giving awards to this engine. It's a 560 brake horsepower, and the gearbox is amazing, and the car flies like a bullet. It's really fun to drive. It feels like a sports car. It's a shorter wheelbase compared to the Aston, so it feels more compact and drives very tight, but if you put it into comfort mode it's quite comfortable as well. I wish they'd changed the gearbox to be even softer in the comfort mode, because it still drives quite hard, but it's a sports car. Also, since the Boxster went away, I missed not having a convertible in the summer. Plus, as much as I love the Aston, I've had it for a few years and I wasn't excited so much. I love the car. If I had the money I would have kept it, but I can't afford to keep 3 cars, so I thought I should just get rid of the Aston and then get this, and in future I can always buy another Aston because the Rapides are not rare cars. I have to say this car is very expensive for what it is. I think you pay the money for the brand and the engine, because the inside, the finishing, the leather, as much as they say Italian leather and all that is amazing, once you've owned an Aston Martin, you'll realize that all these other cars don't seem as beautifully finished as the Astons are. I've sat in so many different cars and I've driven so many different cars. The Rapide was one of the best, most beautifully finished cars. Everything was just perfection, and everything felt like it was really, really good quality. There was nothing cheap in that car. I saw a few of these which had the air vents in aluminium, and the border around the aluminium of these air vents looked like, I don't know, a can of soda. It was really badly finished. This one has all carbon fiber inside, so the central bridge is carbon fiber, the vents are carbon fiber, the steering wheel, the paddles, there's a lot of carbon fiber. Even though I'm not a big fan of carbon fiber, I think it makes this car look better. I saw a few which didn't have the carbon fiber extras and they didn't look as good. This car was ideal because of the color combination. I really loved it. It has this Alcantara metal in sort of the coffee color, and then the rest of it is black leather, which is a really lovely combination. So is all this dashboard here. It's all Alcantara, and it looks amazing. Obviously this is a second-hand car, but it's had one owner in its life who had driven it for 1,500 miles, so it was as good as new. When I saw it, I knew that I wanted this particular car because it had all these extras that I wanted, and all this carbon fiber steering wheel, especially this what they call the driver zone, which has all the buttons on the steering wheel with the LED display to show when to change gears, and it had Apple CarPlay. Other things that it has which are nice to have, I didn't really care for them very much, like the leather roof. Apparently it squeaks sometimes because the leather rubs against leather. So far this car is as good as new, so there's no rattle, no squeaking, no nothing. But yeah, I'm very lucky because I managed to find a car that had such low mileage. I mean, 1,500, the car's barely run in, and one owner, I think he or she probably bought it as a second or third car, never really drove it very much, and then went and exchanged it for something else. Switch on the engine. Sounds amazing. For a turbo engine, this car sounds like a Ferrari. Yeah, so unlike all the other cars with automatic transmission, this one is a bit bizarre. Basically, if you take your foot off the brake, the car doesn't creep forward, which is, I think, a typical Ferrari thing, because most of the other cars with automatic transmission, the gear is engaged and the car starts to crawl forward as you take your foot off and then you press the accelerator, whereas in this it just stays there or even rolls back if you're on an incline, which is rather strange. But it's one of those, perhaps, the Ferrari things, the little quirks or something to do with their sportiness, perhaps. But yeah, what I was saying about this engine, it's a turbo engine, but it drives like a non-turbo engine. And I was talking to the guy who sold me the car. He was a Ferrari engineer, and he then went into sales, and he basically buys cars for Ferrari and sells them as well, but he's a buyer but also a salesman sometimes. And he said that the way they've set up the engine is to restrict the torque in low gears, so it gives you the feeling as if you're driving a non-turbo engine, and the full torque comes at the highest gears, which is why it feels and sounds like a non-turbo engine. Remarkable job. The other thing that is very interesting is he said that the gearbox is one of the most sophisticated ones that Ferrari have ever made. The gearbox is extremely smooth and you wouldn't feel the gears changing. So the computer basically drops the torque for a fraction of a second while the gears are changing to give you that little thump when the gears change, and you feel that the gears have changed rather than just be really smooth. Interesting. After driving the Aston, I have to say this is a much smaller car and it feels very nimble and fun to drive, yet it has the same brake horsepower. The Aston had a 6-litre V12 and it was a 550 brake horsepower. I can't remember the exact torque, and this one is a 560 brake horsepower, smaller car, and yes, I don't know the torque of this one either, but I can probably look it up and put it up for comparison. But this is a V8, that was a V12, so it's a smaller engine. It's, I think, a 3.9 litre, roughly 4 litre engine, and that was a 6 litre. The sound of the 6 litre V12 when it started was divine, and even though it was a big massive 2-ton beast, the car was really quick. I already have a feeling that I'm going to miss the Aston very much, because it was one of the nicest cars I've ever owned and driven, and hopefully one day I'll have more money and I can buy another one, but right now I can't afford to have 3 expensive cars. I'm not sure if I want to sell the 911 yet. I might. If this car does everything that the 911 does and gives me the enjoyment and the feeling, then I might sell the 911. Because I don't want it to just sit there and not be used. Maybe I'll buy a little practical car, because this and the 911 are very comparable. They have those mini seats at the back that are completely useless. This one's a convertible and has more brake horsepower, so in a way this might be more fun, but I guess the Porsche has its own charm. I don't know. I'll keep both of them for at least 6 months and then decide whether I want to sell the 911 or not. So yeah, I'm gonna try and stop somewhere and put the top down. That's one thing that's a little annoying, that you can't put the top down while you're driving. I think in the Portofino you can, but in this particular one you can't, and I think it's down to the fact that this car is older. So I guess when the boot lifts up and the roof falls with all the wind and all that, it may end up... Roof is down. I might have to switch it to manual, because I think that's the only way I can get the car not to change gears and produce amazing sounds. Just the second gear. Car keeps going. Somehow, it's bizarre, but the car feels tighter with the top down and feels more stable. I think the weight has shifted from the top to the back, and now is probably more of a good distribution between front and back, because the 911 feels very grippy and glued to the road, whereas this car feels a bit wobbly. It's insanely fast. it shifts very, very quickly and feels that you're driving really fast. Oh my god, the horn in this car is just ridiculous. The 911 unfortunately cannot be replaced easily because it's the last of the naturally aspirated engines. And it's a GTS, so because it's such a lovely car with such low mileage, I think the 911 is a rarer car, so I decided to keep it, even though both cars are very similar, as in this and the 911. The other thing I really miss is the Aston had the Bang & Olufsen sound system, and oh my god, that was one thing that was just absolutely divine. This car has the standard Ferrari sound system, whatever they call their premium sound system. It's not even a good brand. It's okay, it's not amazing. I might have to find a specialist who can do something with it to improve the sound quality, because the Aston was great. The 911 has a Bose system, so that was acceptable, and this has like the worst one out of the three cars. Takes a little bit to get used to the steering wheel with all the buttons on it. Yesterday it was raining really heavily and I couldn't get used to having the wipers on the steering wheel and adjusting them, and they had the automatic rain sensing thing, but it wasn't working as well, and then the indicators as well, a bit getting used. Right, let me show you the car. This is the two-tone interior with leather and Alcantara mixed. Here you have the controls for the rear view mirrors and to open the fuel tank and the boot. This is to open the door. It has this carbon fiber sill, carbon fiber surrounds for these and those in the middle. It has Apple CarPlay. The center bridge is also carbon fiber. But most of all, this steering wheel is the most beautiful thing. It is all carbon fiber, and it has the carbon fiber paddles as well, which looks really good. The seats, as you can see, they have Alcantara and leather. I have currently put on the wind deflector because I was driving around with the top down and it was quite windy. What's very bizarre is in this Alcantara in the middle there is the prancing horse that you can barely see at the moment, but if I do that it disappears. If I do that it reappears with the fibers. Then it has these aluminium footrests and yeah, the usual stuff. The rear seats are non-existent. I mean, they're so small even I can't fit in them. It's very uncomfortable because the back is really upright and straight. I think it's the same in all convertibles.